We're finally hearing from former White House Chief of Staff John Kelly, sounding off on President Trump. As The Atlantic reports, the retired general explained in the clearest terms yet his misgivings with Trump's behavior regarding North Korea, immigration, and Ukraine. Speaking last night at Drew University, Kelly said that Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman was simply following the training he'd received as a soldier. Quote, he did exactly what we teach them to do from cradle to grave. Kelly added, we teach them don't follow an illegal order. If you're ever given one, you'll raise it with whoever gives it to you, and then you tell your boss. Joe?
Yeah, well, don't follow an illegal order. And thank you to General Kelly for telling the truth. That's where we are now in 2020. We actually commend officials and former officials for just telling the truth and telling Americans what we've always known, what we once knew, that officers in the military should not follow illegal orders. Vindman being drummed out of the White House and being recommended for prosecution by a commander-in-chief who, by the way, decided to pardon war criminals that did unspeakable things in the name of the American military. But here we have a real hero who refused to follow. Who refused to follow an illegal order. And, you know, it's so interesting that he did that, Elise Jordan, and you had Republicans saying he was a hero. Liz Cheney talking about how Lieutenant Colonel Vindman should never be disparaged because he was an American hero. You had even people like Lindsey Graham telling Donald Trump he shouldn't get involved in the judicial process the way he has in this Roger Stone process. Of course, Donald Trump's not going to listen to that. Remember when he was going to fire Gordon Sondland? You had all of these Republican senators who had just voted to acquit Donald Trump of impeachable offenses that he said, that they said were actually that he committed. Going and asking, don't fire Sondland. Donald Trump didn't listen. And so he's run over all of these senators because the only one that has shown that he'll stand up and actually act like a patriotic American when that means staring down the President of the United States has been Mitt Romney. The rest have just been shameful. And so he runs over them, and we find ourselves where we are right now with judicial independence at risk.
It's staggering that it's only been a week since Donald Trump was acquitted, and you go through the litany of things that he's done just in that week. Vindman, Sondland, the Roger Stone case. He attacked the FBI director. He is so empowered. He had the best week he had ever had, and then he literally just goes on a spree, a rampage of testing the norms and the boundaries of rule of law. And imagine what he's doing behind the scenes and saying in foreign leader calls that we don't even know. I guess now he is feeling confident that he's vanquished Joe Biden and got away with pursuing his Banana Republic aid for political intelligence trade. But we don't even know the half of it at this point.
That is for sure.
Yeah, you know, Mike Barnicle, I do want to follow up on something that Elise said, because I agreed with everything she said, but she talked about Donald Trump vanquishing Joe Biden, and there was a little Twitter back and forth yesterday when I congratulated the president for, in effect, getting himself impeached over a fifth-place finisher in New Hampshire. And a lot of people said, well, you know, it's probably what Donald Trump did that caused Joe Biden to finish so poorly in Iowa and New Hampshire. I actually brought up a tweet that I sent out on November the 1st of last year and just reported what I had heard from Biden fundraisers, that even in October, before all of this blew up, they were concerned about Joe Biden having a fourth-place finish in Iowa and New Hampshire and being out of money by the end of the year. Donald Trump didn't cause Joe Biden's problems in Iowa and New Hampshire. The calendar did. The predominantly white states by a guy whose most of his support comes, the base of his support comes from black voters. So this whole idea that somehow Donald Trump has caused Joe Biden's poor finishes, that's a fantasy. This guy bet on the fifth place horse in Iowa and New Hampshire and got himself impeached over it.
Yeah, I think Joe would agree with you with that November tweet. But clearly, the impact of the continued assaults on Hunter Biden and Burisma, with Joe Biden, the former vice president, linked to it, did some damage to his candidacy, Joe. You could just pick that up anecdotally. But to the larger point that you were talking about, that we've all been talking about, Trump's behavior over the past week, Kurt raised the issue. Can you imagine what he will be like a year from now if he is reelected? He will be totally unbound. And Jim Vandehei.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.